questions first? All right, questions. Okay, everybody stand up. Who owns Bitcoin? Stand up. Come on, this audience participation part now. Okay, a couple of people are still sitting. You have to stand up, I know that. All right. Everybody sit down who only has a Coinbase account. No other accounts. Okay. Impressive. Okay, good. Who owns Ether? You can stay standing. Everybody else sit down. And who owns any other altcoins? You can stay standing. Everybody else sit down. Okay, much better now, right? Much better now than before. Do we get to see a video? Cool.
This is the German Coast Guard. What are you thinking about?
So there's 2 points to this. A, I don't have an accent. And the second point is language is a tricky thing. And to know your vocabulary when you're talking about stuff is sort of important so you don't sink, right? So can we get this full screen? So when we talk about cryptocurrency exchanges, so one thing is very important. It's like cryptocurrency exchanges are not like other exchanges, right? Most people in the room hopefully know this. And right now, if you were the one left standing, you're one of the 1%. Actually, you're one of 0.5%, because the next slide, that's how many people in the world right now have wallets. Actually, this is the count only of the wallets. So there's like 17 million wallets right now, and a lot of people have 1.5, 2, right? So there's 3.57 billion internet users out there, and everybody should have one eventually at one point in time. So you all heard the saying, the metaphor about the rising ships, right? So if you're on a ship that's sailing out now, by the way, it was not JFK who said that, but different day, different story. So let's get our taxonomy right. That's the next slide. So we got a couple of different forms of exchanges. So you got the trading engines, right? These we call order book exchanges, where they execute your order automatically. We got brokerage services. That's where you might be calling it in or sending an email or something like that. And you got trading platforms. And that's what most people think about when they talk about exchanges, trading platforms. So the company that's now creating most new accounts, 150,000 new accounts a day supposedly, and it's now the #1 search term on the iTunes web store, is Coinbase. So the question is Coinbase an exchange? Speak up. No, exactly. Coinbase is not an exchange. The company owns an exchange. It's called something else. It's called GDAX, right? When you transact on Coinbase, what you're actually doing is you're initiating an ACH. That's why it takes 3 to 5 days, right? So most people that think that they are trading currency, they're not. They're not actually trading currencies, right? So I guess we can skip that. So what's especially interesting, though, about Coinbase is that a couple of years ago, the IRS decided to make an announcement saying, and I mentioned this before, that coins, and specifically Bitcoins, are property, and they like to tax property. And so they saw the rise of Coinbase, they being the Internal Revenue Service, and saw that they have more than 1 million users. And the same year, they got 802 tax returns that mentioned Coinbase, that mentioned Bitcoin trades. That got them really curious, so they sent an order over to Coinbase saying, hey, you got 1.2 million accounts. I want all of these accounts. Send them to me. Coinbase fought it semi-successfully. They ended up settling with the IRS, so they ended up sending over only those accounts that had more than $20,000 of transactions that year. Just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying to stay away from it, but just something to know about, right? So, wallets. Wallets are actually mini exchanges, right? Half of all wallets have exchange functions. Most of wallets actually have fiat exchange functions, right? And a lot of those also have fiat and to cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency to cryptocurrency exchange functions. So if you think this through, right, if I can just have a wallet that might be tied to an exchange, but the wallet is in your possession. It might be a USB drive or something like that, and you just pull it out when you leave. Think about wallets. I think we can skip the details so we get to questions. So here's a little checklist I made. So what you should be looking for. So there's not that many exchanges out there, and we'll get to that are relevant, right? So you need to check for geo restrictions. Can you sign up? What's your passport? Where do you live, right? What are the banking relationships? What's your banking relationship? Does your bank allow that? For the longest time, every time I made a trade, my credit card was stopped. I had to call my credit card company, and I'm like, that's fine. They do this in Estonia all the time. I know I don't live there. They're good. They can charge my card, right? Trading volume. There's only a few exchanges that have relevant trading volume right now, right? So you definitely don't want to have currency there if you can't get it out, right? You want to be able to sell it. Verification requirements. I assume most people already went through this. If not, you will at one point in time for the typical KYC, know your client, AML, anti-money laundering qualifications that those exchanges need to go through. So you probably have to upload your passport, ID, etc. So just know this before you start registering with one. You should know what payment methods they accept. There's actually a few that will let you buy a gift card and upload money, right? And there's a couple of interesting ones that don't tell you about the fees, at least not before they occur. And some hide those fees in exchange rate. And then the obvious ones, you want to look for the reputation of the exchanges. And I'm going to circulate this later, but let's just move on. So what my colleague said earlier is totally correct. All of you are in charge of your security, right? And the exchanges are indeed the number one target of hackers. However, they caught up to this, obviously. So most of their funds are now actually held in cold storage after the disaster of the past. They learned from this, so that's a good thing. Most of them have multi-sig. But yeah, do not turn over your custody of your funds, at least not relevant amounts. Don't leave those at the exchanges. He was totally right about that. So these are the top 20 exchanges that actually have relevant volume. These make up 95% of all trading volume right now. I'm going to go some of those in detail later, maybe. But let's just go through this. So this is one that I wanted to pick on because a lot of people have been burned by this, because Shapeshift provides little buttons that show up on sites where you can buy an altcoin or something else. And there's enormous fees attached to that. And depending on who's implementing those, you might end up paying those fees. Like today I looked it up. If I bought something with Bitcoin, the fee was $45 for one trade. Not picking on anybody in particular. This one is an interesting one because this is the largest exchange, but they call themselves a Mercantile Exchange. Anybody know what a Mercantile Exchange is? No one? Okay. Yeah, you? Retailers? Close, yeah, something like that. Gold stuff, right? So moving on from that one, let's make it quick. So the largest mercantile exchange in the world is actually the Chicago Exchange, and Bitcoin will have a future trading exchange there. on Monday. So that's a good part of the reason why Bitcoin went up. Some people might have seen this slide before. This is just a reminder that there's no clarity to be had in the United States and won't be for some time. Like all different organizations of the United States government made different noises. As I mentioned earlier, IRS thinks it's property, obviously wants to tax it. SEC is looking at every single ICO thinking, oh, this might be security, and most of the time they are wrong, really, but that's a different issue. And internationally, there's also different noises. But the bottom line is, if you can, try to not hold your currency in the United States as long as the situation is as unclear as it is. If you have an option, do it differently. Last one. So I like to remind people, because we're still doing ICOs, that you need to understand what you're buying, right? So if someone is telling you, my token is a utility, but you can't actually immediately use it, it's not a utility. Also, most tokens are right now built on ERC20 on the Ethereum platform. So if someone is telling you, hey, I'm doing all these different things, I have this new data security layer and we're storing all your little data all over the place. Well, this is not free, right? So every time you're creating a transaction on Ethereum, there's a fee connected to this, right? And so do your math when you're buying a token and someone is telling you I'm doing XYZ with this token, every time he's doing XYZ is costing him whatever the transaction fee is. Does this math work out? Or is this actually more than you're paying for that token? It's basic blockchain economics. Okay, so blockchains evolve very rapidly. Chances are all of the blockchains that you're seeing right now won't exist at the end of the year, right? Right now, Ethereum is a one-trick pony. Right? It's an ICO platform. It's not very useful to do a large amount of transactions. It's not very fast. Proof of work is probably not going to be the end-all, be-all. Do we have another slide? I don't remember. Probably a quote. Let's do a quote. Okay. Blockchain will do to the financial system what the internet did to media. I believe that. Even though I read it in the Harvard Business Review, but I still believe it. And here's the reason why. The first time around, we actually did not build the internet. What I mean by this is we built the commercial web, right? So we have 10 companies that provide access. We got 10 companies that control content distribution on top of it. So with blockchain, the real opportunity that we have is to actually build the World Wide Web, to really connect people peer-to-peer. And that's the other message. If you're looking at exchanges right now, they might be very transient, right? We might not need them. It's a peer-to-peer system. That's what blockchain is. That's it.